Hi, welcome. I am your host, Marya Kazmi, and this is Pain to Power, the show where we talk about how we are healing by turning our pain into our power, our struggles into our strength, and learning the tools that we need in community. And I'm so happy to have you here with me today. A reminder, we are produced by the iRant Network. And if you haven't done it yet, please go and subscribe below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, you like, share a comment, and hit that bell so that you get all of the episodes of Pain to Power. And I have a new podcast that I've been doing called Marya's Musings. And so when you hit that bell, you'll know when I come live to share my stories of understanding and patterns I'm recognizing in myself through storytelling and understanding just how do we actually start to heal ourselves by recognizing some of the things that are happening. So I've got 2 episodes out, but all of it really is connected to this idea of our cycle of socialization. So, before I bring my guest on today, I want to talk about that because I've been talking about these courses that are going to be coming back up in the fall called for Empowerment Unlocked. And all of it is about the idea that we are socialized through our entire lives from the time we're born to throughout our existence, and that those messages and those patterns impact the way that we move through the world, the decisions that we're making. So I want to start today thinking about just that very initial socialization, which is that we're not born as a blank slate. In fact, and there's a quote that's going to be coming up here in a moment, Bobby Harrow, who is the sociologist who created this idea of the cycle of socialization, says our socialization begins before we are born with no choice on our part. No one brings us a survey in the womb inquiring into which gender, class, religion, sexual orientation, cultural group, ability status, or age we might want to be born. So, all of this is the fact that we exist and come into environments, families, communities that already have patterns, they already have biases, they already have belief systems. And our job is to start to unlock and by recognizing what those patterns are and change that cycle, because the beauty of the cycle is that we can always break it and we can always break free from it, which is why I'm very excited to introduce today's guest, who has been doing this idea of breaking cycles by transforming community and some of the teachings that he has through self-determination and empowerment. And I want to introduce you to my guest, Dr. Sujan Das, also known as Supreme Understanding. He is a specialist in non-formal education with a background in street corner philosophy. He's a best-selling author of over 20 fiction books, as well as an editor and publisher and a righteous builder. Please welcome Supreme Understanding. Hi, good evening.
Peace, 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 Queen.
Peace. I love that. So, I mean, before we start, we've got to, I mean, this is your name, Supreme Understanding. We got to unpack that just a little bit and give everybody some background on, y- you are Dr. Sujan Das, but you go
Mm-hmm.
by Supreme Understanding. So tell me a little bit about your name itself.
Ooh, my full name is Supreme Understanding Allah. Supreme Understanding is my pen name. Supreme Understanding is just a shortened form of my righteous name, which comes from the 5% culture, which I've been a 5%er since I was 15. And that is the time when I took on the name Supreme Understanding Allah, because I wanted to understand why the world was the way it was and why people are the way they are and why people treat each other so cruelly as they
Mhm.
did where I was growing up and in the experience that I saw. So when I had the opportunity to get knowledge of self and we rename ourselves in that process, that's why I chose the name Supreme Understanding. A lot of people know me as Supreme. They don't always know that my full name is more so about the understanding that I'm here to develop as a representative of God.
That's a powerful intentional decision to make. So I appreciate that. And we're going to get a little bit more into the background of your history in terms of the five percenters and just some of the this path that you've taken. But I want to first ask you, because whenever I have people come on the show, we always talk about this idea of what it means individually to each person to turn pain into power. And I know you write about it. You often, you blog about it. You talk about pain often, but when you think about turning pain into power, what has that meant for you?
Mm. It's a daily process sometimes. I feel like, I think you said something about the social cycle or something like that. And I was
Mhm.
like, there's times when um grief will kick in, or trauma will kick in, or something will be a trigger that will make me just say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go back to building in the way that I know how to build, because this public part of things, I don't like it right now. That part's thing. So every once in a while, I'll get out the way of the public eye, get right back to building, and then when I'm ready, when I feel like, I've turned enough pain into power, I come back outside again with something to offer people. So
But I
yeah,
love
it's an
that.
ongoing process.
Because it sounds like what you're doing though is your tool is that recluseness, sort of, right? Like pulling away and taking care of you in
Yeah, I
order
tell
to
people,
then move to that sharing with
yeah,
others.
yeah, nobody believes I'm an introvert. I think I'm what they call an ambivert, but I really just do the extroverted thing because it's part of how we get to our goals and how we get the success. And none of us are an island. Yet I recharge when I go within, and I isolate. And then sometimes when I have enough of that, then I need to charge up another way. So maybe I'm both.
You could be. I mean, I think that's the complexity of life. We can all be both, right? We don't have to just be one. So, in all this, right? And you talked about how you have since 15 been part of the five percenters, and that's your belief system and your community and the things that you focus on and teach on. But let's go back a little bit into your childhood because you are Bengali. Um, right. So tell me a little bit about just your identity, who you are in your own like upbringing.
So my family was the ones that didn't leave the hood. My parents, man, I could tell so many beautiful stories about my ancestors and my bloodline and those that produced me. But the most immediate and short version of the story is that I was born in Jersey City, to parents that never left, the quote unquote inner city. And so I grew up a little different. And um, I embraced the community that embraced me. I didn't grow up in community with a lot of Indian people and with very, very few Bengali people. Um, so the Black, Spanish, and West Indian community of Jersey City played a major role in raising me. But Jersey City was hella diverse, so I had Filipino friends, I had Korean friends when I was little, um, and I never really I don't remember ever getting along with white people. It was always something. So I had an identification with what I now call original people or melanated people. I seen solidarity with people that was melanated like myself, and I identify with that struggle. I identify with the community that I grew up in. And I never wanted to just follow along. I always felt like because I was making my own way and figuring things out for myself in the world, that I wanted to know for sure. So I studied every teaching and tradition and thing like that because I was on a quest to figure out, what are we here for? Why is life the way it is? Who am I? What am I supposed to do with this life? Because I thought, like, man, life is hell. Like there got to be something to this. And so the 5% is not a belief system. It's actually something that taught me how to know. It's something that taught me how to know, and taught me how to learn so that I could know versus believe, because you don't have to believe in the things that you know.
So tell me more about what that means for you. You don't have to believe in the things that you know. Like if you're breaking it down for everyone else who's listening.
If you believe that you're doing good, you already know you could be wrong. But if you know you're doing good, then you know, right? So if you know that this will cause it to rain, hail, snow, and earthquake. Like if you know that's what makes things happen, and you know the cause and effect behind things, you don't have to believe in it. So you don't have to believe that God is crying when it's raining, or that if it's raining during sunshine, that the devil's beating his wife. Like those is ideas you give to people that believe, like children. Like children believe in the boogeyman. But the older you get, you don't want to just go off of what somebody told you to believe to keep you in check or to like give you a moral story. Like you want to actually know for yourself. And I was always one of them. Like I always ask questions. I went to
Mhm.
a Catholic school for elementary school, and I was always in trouble because I was always asking questions about, well, if Jesus died and came back as a spirit, why he had to roll the rock to the side? And they didn't like that. They had a problem with with me, and then don't ask questions. And I was always like, my parents didn't teach me that I couldn't ask questions. My parents didn't raise me with the religion. They didn't raise me Hindu, Muslim, Christian, none of that. My family was Hindu, but they was Hindus that was in many ways from a land where Hindus and Muslims lived side by side. And then at some point, the white folks had us go to war with each other, and so they were refugees from that genocide and that war and that famine that came about in Bengal and split Bengal into West Bengal and Bangladesh. And them both ended up here. They didn't press religion on me in any kind of way, but they did press, like my mother was real big on ethics and my father was real big on intelligence.
Mhm.
So those two things, whatever I went through, just growing up as a child of immigrant parents and parents just figuring it out, and what we call dysfunctional family and all that. Like sometimes I look at it like, no, if it functioned to produce me, so it worked out okay.
I think every family has its dysfunction in and of itself because nothing is purely anything, right? But I appreciate one your breakdown of the knowing that's important because it sounds like that shift is really it's going from uh, this idea of something to fully just that knowledge and understanding that it is what it is, and it's that strong knowing and knowledge that pushes that. But, you you talk about your family, and I love that because I think you're breaking down the fact that there's so many different dynamics of immigrant families, right? So,
Mhm.
not everyone leans into religion, not everyone leans into culture. So, I came from a family who leaned into religion, not culture. Some people lean into culture. I think it's a you said your mom leaning into ethics and your dad leaning into intelligence is their focus. But you also mention, and I think you and I have talked about this, there's a big shift, and there was like a moment where in your knowing all this time, there were things you knew about inequities, right? Like in the treatment of people. And tell me a little bit about those moments where, not just with white people, but with South Asians, where you experience anti
Oh
Blackness
yeah.
that
Oh, we
woken
don't
you
mind.
up.
I didn't want to say we, but like it's that shameful we. Like I don't like the shameful we. So I'm a and then I want to say they, but I come from that same community. It's just I never saw it that way. Um, I never needed to put black people in this like other category, because for one, my friends was black Americans and black Puerto Ricans. So I understood from that blackness was a global thing, because I'm like, oh wait, there's black people where I'm from too, and they treated lower too. Like they might, they and usually they the coolest people, but they not always the people with the power or the people with the super esteem. Like I could pick up on that too. And so um I didn't have this sense where it's like, okay, I gotta, can I cuss? Can we
Yeah,
cuss here?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cuss.
yeah.
So I didn't
That's
need to
fine.
shit on black people to build up my own self-esteem, right? But I noticed that there was a thing where it's like, even the dark skinned Indians that were like isolated and they were like in school with the white people, like for them to be cool with the white people, they had to be like what I call the chaiwala, right? Slumdog Millionaire, the tea bringer, right? So now you bring tea to the white people and you appeal to them by like looking down on something that's
Mm,
lesser than you. So then you become this model minority and this buffer class in the middle. Um, and it just looked lame. It just looked really lame to me. It looked like kissing up the people that don't like you. And I could like I watched my few Indian friends like that I fell out with and like them friendships didn't last long. Anytime that we get around white people, I would see like, yo, you acting different. And you
mm,
ready to sell out your own people. You ready to sell me out for their approval. And I never seen nobody black do that in my experience. So I was like, this is a weird thing that I don't like this. That's definitely not me. Um, so the more I saw it, the more I was picking sides. Like I'm like, I don't like that. Um, yeah, so I honestly just I might have burnt a lot of bridges being that guy that would be like, yo, that's racist. Why would you say that?
mm.
Um, and then I became known as the ghetto Indian. Like I'm the one from the hood, so I got that reputation, and I wasn't one of them anymore,
Mhm.
and
So
it's fascinating.
so with that though, like, how did that ever impact you? Like, did you ever feel like, I don't know where I belong in all this, right? Or do you feel like you were able to find your space in that?
Man, I've always felt like I was a one of one, even in my own family, even in my own household, even in like within my bloodline. Like I always felt like I was unique and I was different, and Um, sometimes I feel like I got sense when like I look around, I wouldn't see too much sense around me. So the 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 kind of people that I related to was the sages. They was the wise. It might have even been like a wise junkie, or just somebody that was crazy. I love like I have an affinity for people that's off because I know the ways in which I'm off. So I always could relate to the ones that was a little nuts, especially if they was like ethically nuts, like a warrior that's like a righteous warrior, but he missing a few screws.
Mm,
Oh man, like them is my kind of people, the alcoholics, the addicts. Um, those were the people that used to give me the jewels and the wisdom and encourage me. And so I seen people from the worst of circumstances give me the best of their character. And that always looked like the divine operating in human form to me.
I see geologic
And,
and friends the same. Um, and that's a
back home, when
that's
I
a
went
beautiful
back home, it's the
thing,
same way.
but, like, is it being seen for the first like, is that when you are seen, regardless of who it is, but it's the person who actually sees all those pieces of you?
I mean, I guess I like more so to like I it's nice to get the validation of quote unquote being seen. Um, but I think I liked it more when I would just see myself in others and I could see me in them. Like
Hmm.
if I see you, but I'm seeing me in you, like or me as you, then I'm like, oh, okay, here go another like mind. Here goes somebody else that's also questioning society and questioning things. So like
Mhm.
anybody that asks questions, I like them. People that scared to ask questions, I'm like, oh, that's unalike. That's not me.
Mm. And
Who
geologic
asks
friend says
questions?
that's real.
Like who's a critical
Yeah.
thinker? Who don't go for the okey doke? Who don't believe? Like like I like people that can scam and that could trick people, like because and that could hustle because I'm like, well, you gotta be smart enough to not be scammed and tricked to be able to run the scam and trick. You gotta already know how the scams and trick work. So this is a smart, you know what I mean? Sharp tooth
Yeah.
motherfucker right here.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
it's
I have
the
more respect for them
standout.
than somebody that just get lied to and fooled.
But, I mean, but that's who you are, right? It sounds like that what's important to you is not what is important to the status quo, right? Like you're clearly thinking very differently than everyone. And this is you young. So as you get older, right? You said at 15, you start to learn more about and take this journey into understanding the 5% and what that is. So tell me a little bit about how that came to really be a part of your life and your story.
Okay, and first I have to make sure that my phone don't die because
Okay, I was
anybody
like,
that
we're
knows me
moving.
knows
Like,
I
all right.
love letting my phone clock out on me. You
No,
know this
please,
already, don't
please
you?
charge your phone so we don't lose you today.
Let's see if this works. Will it end up upside down? Or this is
All right. Okay. And for those of you who are tuning in, as we're waiting for some charging happening here, please make sure that you subscribe, hit the like, and share a comment. Add your comments, questions. Do you have questions for Supreme? Throw them in the chat. And all right. So yeah.
yes,
So tell me
we're not
now.
charged.
Okay, we're plugged in. We're charged. We're ready. Let's go deep.
Um, question again. Give me the question again.
What led you to the journey of discovering the 5%?
Oh, I was in them streets. I was I was in them streets. I I was a I might have been a problem child in many ways. So I was already looking for answers and not satisfied with what I was being given from an early age. And yeah, and my household was a little bit chaotic, and I was around a lot of dysfunction, and my neighborhood was wild. So I was always in trouble. And by the time I was 9, I got kicked out the house at 9, right? By 10, I was a runaway. So I used to run away starting at 10. I was an alcoholic by the time I was like 12 or 13. And I was really, really in the streets by the time I was 15. Um, and I had gotten kicked out of high school. So my private school years was had come to a close. I got put out of high school for robbing white boys, and no other high schools would take me. So I was schoolless for a while, and I was convinced I was going to be a dropout. But my mama was big on education, and she wouldn't go for it. Um, so she kept going to schools and trying to get me in. And during that time, I was just roaming the streets. And in roaming those streets, I just got closer and closer to the boys on the block. And while being in the mix with them and doing all the teenage foolishness that could involve, jumping across rooftops and getting drunker and higher than I had ever been, I ran into knowledge of self, which is kind of like the way that the best of us get it. We get it when we're in a like with a point where we don't plan on living past our 20s, and I damn sure didn't
Mm.
at this age. So had it not been for knowledge of self, I was definitely on a path to not making it, being a quote unquote statistic, as they'd say.
So, knowledge of self, meaning your own knowledge of self, or you ran into someone who has knowledge of self?
So I was looking on my own since I was young. Like I wanted to know forever. So I was studying and finding out about things like Buddhism and Sufism when I was like 13, 14. So they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I was uh, with a group of guys from the neighborhood, from um, the hood, really, from up the street and around the way, and we would smoke, drink, and freestyle at this brother named Son's house. That was our spot, and he was a little bit older than us, but he took in us wayward teens and gave us a safe place to smoke, drink, and freestyle.
Mm.
And every once in a while, I talk about this in my book, How to Hustle and Win. He would pull out this binder after our sessions, and I would just be fascinated, like, okay, this man just smoked, and now he puts his mind into a book. Like I don't like, typically we might rap, we might tell jokes, we might go outside and go, see what there is to get into. But this man pulls out a binder and he starts studying. And he was a wild dude. So I'm like, what makes this guy respect
Mm.
this information? so much. And I asked him to teach me, and I asked him to put me on, and that was my introduction to the living of this culture, because I'd already heard about it, but I had never met nobody with it until I realized that he had it. And from there, oh man, I wanted to know everything. So he
Mm.
he introduced me to others that had it, other gods and earths, and from that day forward, it was a journey. I used to have a liquor bottle in my pocket, and I'd be sneaking into my elders. The elder god and earth of that city was named Seaborn in Earth Asia. I used to go to their house with a liquor bottle hidden away in my pocket, chewing gum, trying not to smell like my breath stinking like alcohol, and just would be fascinated by the fact that their 10-year-old son could rattle off his student enrollment better than I could. And the student enrollment is 10 questions and answers that I memorized off a 10-year-old. A 10-year-old helped me finish my memorizing them lessons. And yeah, it was man, it was a beautiful thing. It still is. It still is. Like I think the fact that this culture continues in that way is such a beautiful thing.
Mm.
Such a beautiful thing. For that to continue without there being a leader or a person to tell people what to do, it's incredible.
So tell me more because you said you were looking for answers, right? This
Mhm.
gave you answers. What are some of the things in particular? Like you said, it's knowledge, it's that power of the knowledge itself, but what specifically were some of those answers that you felt like you found?
Hmm. That all paths and all questions lead back to self. That's that's not something I knew in day one or year one. Year
Mhm.
one, I might have just been learning how to be more godly, how to have, just the basics of character development, manhood development, being able to hold my own among other men, being able to have, men that don't play with nobody, like take me serious.
Mhm.
Yeah, being a man amongst men before striving to be a king or a god, just being a man amongst men. And I got that training young, while being wild and foolish. And so it grew me up. In fact, I was late uh, to this because we were doing a reception for one of the gods who was back in town from out the country. And, I got some of the guys and nurse here, and it just felt like a family reunion. And every time we do that, like my whole brain just stops because it brings me back home to an environment where like
Mm.
it was one of the most healthy times in my life, and it still is, because every time I'm around the knowledge and the knowledge is circulating, I see other people getting healthy, and for me, that's my joy now. When I see other people getting well the same way I got myself well, because I was not well.
Yeah. No, but that's beautiful because this healed you, right? Like this is those pieces that made you better and healed you, and that community connection sounds like there was really a lot of power in that. So if you
Yes.
think back on your own journey, like your own process of, and you said like in year 1, you're in one place, and year 2, you're in another place, right? Where do you think for you was that moment when things really solidified and you saw this as a bigger path for you to spread that knowledge beyond yourself?
19. At 19, I was a junior at Morehouse College here in Atlanta, and all the guys that were a little bit older than me, and when I mean older than me, all the guys that raised me was like in their 20s, right? And to me that was old. So they was in their 20s, and the majority of them guys, because I was raised by brothers that was really not the school corporate guys. Like these are guys that was in the streets and righteous and ethical, but like still in them streets. Um, and a lot of them were no longer in town when I was 19. They moved. There was different situations. Like everybody wasn't there anymore, and I was homeless. And I wouldn't have been homeless had them guys still been in town because I'd have been staying with one of them. But most of my network was gone, so I was in the city on my own, homeless. That was another story. While a junior at Morehouse, and the city was kind of in my hands, so it was on me to teach. It was on me to keep the culture going in this city. And this was like what, 99, 99, 2000.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that, man, that was a real formative time period for me because it really showed me how to like function on my own, not count on nobody else, not rely or depend on nobody else. So it was like my rites of passage. Like that's, I really went into s- serious manhood mode as I went into my 20s.
Hmm. That's a big role to fill. So
Yeah,
what were
yeah,
some
I
of the
had no
things? Like,
idea.
what
It
was
was, I
that
mean,
like? What were the things you had to start doing?
when I was at 20, I got tired of being homeless. So I didn't like keeping being desperate, begging apartments to give me a chance. So I downloaded some paperwork and got myself a mortgage and became a first time homeowner.
That's
Yeah,
impressive.
yeah, and um got roommates and found a way to pay that mortgage and turned that house into basically a space where all the guys and nurses would be all the time. And
So
we end
you
up
created
uh,
space for everyone to come to.
yeah, yeah. I
Mm.
became a school teacher. As soon as I graduated from Morehouse, I went through Teach for America and I started teaching school. And while teaching school, we were also doing nonprofit. Well, we had a nonprofit, but we never went for fundraising or grants or any of that. We just did everything out of pocket. Where the 5%, we just came together and did what we could for the young of the community. And so in the house, we had a youth center in the house, letting neighborhood teenagers in and out, teaching. Matter of fact, one of the guys that was doing that with me was just here. So yeah, so peace to the God born king, because we did that. Like we got 30-year-olds with families that are with their queen and their children and doing amazing. Um, Shout out to Isaac, Knowledge, Justin, Laura Courageous. There's so many that came to us when they was 12 and 13 and 14.
Wow.
Yeah. And we were in our 20s doing this,
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
early 20s.
I mean, that's an impact. That's a really lasting, deep impact on community and on, yeah, and geologic and fences. It's powerful. Like definitely. You keep so we talked about this ourselves, but tell me a little bit, because you refer to everyone as God, and that is part of the tenets of the five percenters, right? Tell us a little bit
No,
about the breakdown of that.
I'm not referring to everyone as God. I'm referring to the gods as God.
Okay, so who are the
Everyone
gods,
you've heard
and
about
what?
in the
How
story
would you
so far
say
was
that?
God. Everyone you heard about in the story so far was God. However, um, God is the original man that has a knowledge of himself. And in my experience, I don't even throw that word around lightly because um, that might be your nature, but it might not be your activation. So before I start addressing and be like, hey, the God Robert over here, like Robert is not the God yet. That's how you know, because his name is Robert, right?
Mm,
Robert still ain't got enough knowledge of himself to be able to say I'm something beyond a Robert. He might not even know what Robert means. He might not even know what his name means. He might not even know what Robert itself mean, right?
mm.
So Robert is not the God, but Robert might be a cool person. And Robert might be a good person. Robert might be an ethical person. He just hasn't gone on this journey and taken on this study. And he might not even know about it. Um, and before I go and tell somebody, oh, that's the God, they're going to expect, because they're going to expect that person to have the same culture, tenets, lessons as I do. And he don't. So they're going to be
Mhm.
like, damn, hey, man, your homie Robert be lying, you know, and now I'm responsible for that. So if I call anybody the God, is because they really live this culture.
Okay. Well, that I mean, I appreciate that breakdown, and that's a powerful way to like to name others, right? Like to give to others, and like it's obviously you know, a high accolade of like of who you are, your knowledge of self, the way that you are moving through the world, and authentically. Do you ever see, like, is that something that others push back on or ever question? Like, you know, because there are some folks that I would think in referring to a man as God are going to feel a certain way or react a certain way.
Those be for all different types of reasons. For some people in their religion, or the way that they learned their religion, they was taught that that's bad, or that's blasphemy. Um, some people think it's an ego trip. Um, a lot of times, there ain't no one size fits all answer for a person, for somebody that just is in disagreement. Because people, that concept throw them off for various reasons. There's some people that they're more threatened by you saying a black man is God more than saying man is God, and that's another
Mm,
set of problems for them to unpack. So
mm,
yeah, I take all challenges individually. Like, it's like, all right, well, what's your issue? You know, and different strokes for different folks, because it might be somebody that your real only issue with it is you think you couldn't be God because you live in foul. So you're like, I know I'm the furthest thing from God, and it's like, well, maybe lifestyle wise you is, but if you understand that if God is all powerful, then you can't deny God the ability to manifest in the flesh. It don't matter what religion you is, because now you on an ego trip, telling me what your God can't do.
mm,
That's wild that you're gonna tell me that your God is everywhere, can do anything, but he can't be man. He can't appear as you or as somebody in the flesh. How you decide that? If you not God, then how you get to say what God can't do? So if God is all
well,
powerful and can do anything, then absolutely he can present himself as man. And then what would that
mhm,
man do? Would that man do wickedness on the planet, or would that man experience persecution and rampant abuse just to bring righteousness to the planet? And
mm,
historically, that's what the gods have gone through. And they might not always been known as the gods. They might have been called an avatar or something else. But that's God manifesting in the flesh.
mm. Okay. Well, I appreciate that breakdown and that explanation because I think that I'm sure like these are just things people wonder, right? Like there are things that if you don't know about five percenters, if you don't know this culture, if you don't know this community, it's not clear to everyone, right?
Oh yeah.
But I wanna go into you've been writing and you've got your you know, you have your books, but you also have your blog, and there's you know, you speak on community, but there's a piece that I read, you know, connecting back to this idea of pain to power. You have had a significant loss in your life in 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and you wrote a piece, "The Shitty Side of Being Popular," where you start to
Mm-hmm.
talk about some of this fraction of community. Tell me a little bit about just this journey of some of the things that happened in your loss and what you learned about community or even shifted and changed in your perspective of it.
I think I think as you change, your community changes and your sense of community changes. I think, for example, some people believe in that they're part of a vegan community, but there's not a vegan community. It's a lot of people that participate in vegans, and they might participate in other, they might have groups that they belong to. They might, show up at different events. It's not really a community until you can borrow sugar from each other.
Mhm.
It's not really a community until y'all checking on y'all sick and shut in and making sure that the elders is okay. It's not a community until you care about your nieces and nephews' birthdays, and your neighbor. Like
Mhm.
like that Baba Dick Gregory, may he be remembered in power, when he spoke to us for the Hood Health Handbook. He said, I like the book, but the title Hood Health makes me think that the hood is something that people wear to hide something. Like they wear a hood to hide themselves. and we have to go from hoods back to communities. And so we got to go from being
Mm.
hoods to neighborhoods to get to the community, which means we got to be neighbors again. And until, and not just, it's great. We should be physically neighbors too. We should definitely be able to walk to each other's houses, and that's part of our community. We should
So you're
also
talking
know those.
neighborly is
Yeah,
different
we
than
should
just
actually
a
know our
neighbor.
next door neighbors as well too, and we should also treat people as neighbors even if they're not physically our neighbors. So that level of respect and communal understanding is something that the individual got to go on a journey to be able to appreciate that for real and what that mean and what that look like. And some days, and for some people, one day a light go off in their head and they just start grilling for their block,
Mm.
or they start putting together a book club that meets every week because they need a tangible physical group of people that they can see. This is why some people join religions, other people join fraternal organizations, other people join cults because they're looking for something that they really crave, which is,
Connection.
yeah, yeah,
Connection, relationship, right? That safety, that trust, that's all of that, right? And that's a different thing, I think, than just uh, being a part of something, but being within it is almost how you're describing it, right?
yes, yeah.
And now it's collective and network, and everybody's working together. So tell me about your experience because you talk about how you healed through your grief because of community. What was that like for you? How did that become one of the tools for your healing?
And sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. And you, like I said, it makes a difference when you can see yourself in somebody else. So when you talk to yourself through somebody else, oh man, that's a powerful prayer right there. That's a powerful prayer when you talk to God in the form of your fellow human being. And
Mm,
because you can
mm,
talk to yourself and get that same level of wisdom. And sometimes you need to talk to somebody else. So it's from a different lens because we are a singular source of consciousness and reality that personifies itself as the many, just to experience ourselves and each other. And that's a blessing when you can appreciate it. And it can be a curse when it's not doing right for you and you need to get away for a moment because you can
mm,
also do it wrong. You can overextend yourself. You can expose yourself to exploiters. If you aren't discerning, you can confuse uh community for those that are taking advantage of you. Because if you're in too much need for connection, then you'll take anything and you won't have boundaries.
mm. So if you were to give advice to the audience, right? Like about that, what does that look like to be able to have those boundaries, to have that discernment? How do we
Knowledge,
know?
knowledge itself. See the thing, like what we call ourselves the 5% because we actually, this is our obligation on this planet to get the knowledge, to know, right, to know. And in order to know, then we, in deconstructing the beliefs, in the middle of the belief is the lie. In the middle of the word belief or believe, there's the lie. So you
Mm,
got to look for
mhm,
the lie so that you can know. Because why are we told this lie that white is better than black? What is that all about? Why is there a campaign to like hurt, imprison, or outright kill black children? Like, why does that exist? Why is there such a relentless persecution of melanated women? Like, why are black women ignored in hospital settings, and infant mortality is so high among black women across the globe, right? So in looking for these answers, then you learn like, oh, there are people that just go along and they follow with whatever they're told. They don't know no better, and they suffer because they don't know better. But they
mhm,
aspire to be like those that lied to them because those that lied to them live in luxury off the lies that they tell. They
mhm,
manipulate the masses and they put themselves in elevated status just off of being able to lie successfully and keep the poor at bay. So the middle class and those that are the bloodsuckers of the poor, they keep themselves like that buffer class. They're that buffer that keeps, as Karl Marx said, they keep the poor from eating the rich.
mm.
And so then when you start understanding the manipulators of the people, then you start identifying the traits of a manipulator. You start
Mhm.
learning that, like, oh, okay, you're not selfless, you're selfish. And then you become challenged to challenge the 10% tendency within yourself. Like, am I going to be an exploiter that is self-serving, or am I going to learn how to serve others so successfully that I'm able to also serve myself? Because you got to save yourself first, and then you have to, in making it your mission to look out for others and look out for the greater good, you have this higher ethical standard to hold yourself to. That means you got to be better. You have to be brighter,
Mm.
and that obviously is the world of God. That's the world of God. If when God is present in the world, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, when there's injustice and unrighteousness in the world, that is when Krishna will appear as an avatar. Like, and some will say, oh, he gonna come back as Kalki. Somebody else will say in Islam that righteousness will manifest as a Mahdi, and the Christians and the Israelites is waiting on their Messiah, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The return, the representation, because the re means coming back, and present means you here. So the representation of God, different cultures have their own ways of describing what is a representative of God being present on earth, right? Yet in every understanding, it is the righteousness that challenges the unrighteousness in the world. So when you make that choice, you choosing to be on that side of history. You choosing to be on the side of God, no matter how you identify. So you become part of the body of God, and that's how you avoid going for the dumb shit, because
Mm.
you already know what's your world. The more you walk in that world, you don't actually be on the ego trip no more, and you don't actually bring out narcissism like some people imagine. Now, somebody can do that because this knowledge will magnify whatever you got in you. And if you got some hoe ass tendencies, you're just gonna become a super hoe until life will, serve out a system of checks and balances, and then you'll learn what you got to learn to become the next better version of you. Yet if you
Mhm.
got a good heart and a good mind, then you become great at that. um that's the ultimate goal, so people will see God in you before you have to announce it or say it for yourself.
Mm.
And um your ego, your personal desires dissolve, so that there's nothing left but the will of God.
So there's a lot of questioning one, but it sounds like there's the big pieces that knowing of self, like that really knowing, acknowledging all the pieces of self, which is so much a part of the healing journey that people talk about beyond the five percenters, right? Like that is, I think, one of the most powerful things is that self awareness is your way of truly walking through the world with authenticity because you know then that you are fallible, you know that you can be great, but you know what you're capable of and what you're not capable of.
Hmm. True. And that's why they'll take away your identity and try to reduce you to a concept that is more commoditized. And that's why they try to turn you to red or blue, or left
Right,
or right,
right, right.
or they or it,
And there's
or
narratives, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, all of this though now has led you to, you talk about leading the righteous family. And I know that right now, tell us about where you are. You're in Timbuktu. What is Timbuktu and what does that mean to you?
The ancient Timbuktu was a educational center in Mali, which is in West Africa, and it housed many of the teachers that descended from the traditions of the Nile Valley, and the master teachers of the world really congregated there. Um, it was like a descendant of the University of Alexandria, or you know, there's a few other really acclaimed school systems throughout the world, but that would probably be the most recent one, right? Before before my Timbuktu. Um, so Timbuktu, it um it brought together the best traders and the best teachers, and so the traders also were teaching how to do trade, and the teachers also um, were there to um, turn their students into successful people. So they learned more than just how to teach. They learned also how to be great business people. They learned how to be ethical. They learned how to build. They learned how to have healthy relationships. It was really a university system in that everything was being taught there. All the best artists in the world went there. All the best
Mm,
merchants in the world went there. And so there was a marketplace built around the educational spaces, and that's what this is. So I was just in the experience hall, which was in the basement, and we do everything from teaching young people how to turn junk into art and then sell it, to showing people how to build and do light trades like carpentry, electrical. Doing hair and nails are also trades. Tattooing is a trade. Being an esthetician is a trade.
mm,
Um, Being a musician is a trade. It is an art, but it's also a trade. And these are things that will keep you sustained even in the event of a complete disaster that takes out every other system. There's a lot of people that are very big on crypto and, like a lot of digital stuff, which is cool if you are able to make digital economy allow you to make goal gains and accomplish your goals in this physical world right now. Um, but you got to have insurance for the day when a solar flare, because the sun's got insane solar activity going on right now. Our sun is going through storms, but nobody checks on the sun. Everybody, people check on the earth. Shout out to the earth. That's y'all. So we love the earth. We need the earth. The earth is a black woman, and the black woman is the earth, right? um, but we know when the earth is pissed off, and
mm,
we don't always know what the sun is going through because the sun got to keep showing up. And the only way we know when the sun is going through is when all of our systems go out, because that's when the solar flare has kind of whipped out like an arm and hit some part of the earth and turned everything off.
mm,
So the only trades that are sustainable, the only forms of sustainable wealth are when you have trades that would still work in the event of all systems being out. And
mhm.
even in the event of all systems being out, people are still gonna need their nails done. For real. And there's
No,
gonna be,
that is true though, right? There's
yes,
some just like some life skill things that keep community going, that keep people taking care of themselves, right? Like that keep you being a
yeah,
contributing person in society to the people that like you are trying to contribute to.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's so
So
um
that's the goal of the space. That's for the experiential center. You said the experience hall.
yeah, I mean I mean we do wellness experiences there too, because we do yoga and we have live music because that's also a form of healing through sound. Um the goal is for people to just be able to um give their best. So whatever is your trade that you know that you are best at and you can demonstrate it and you can do it in such a way that people would want to apprentice under you, this is the space where we give people their chance to take on that role, because it's really
Mm.
needed here. This is a place where it's really needed. So
Mhm.
whatever looks like wellness, we put that here because um it shouldn't be limited just to one community or another. It should be available wherever it's needed.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. And I mean, you're creating again the space of learning and knowledge building and people supporting one another, right?
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
so we're almost coming to the close, but I got to ask you because I think I imagine there aren't a lot of South Asian people in the communities that you're in with the 5 percenters, and I mean, particularly probably not a Bengali man. So as that, right? So tell me though, like, I mean, in all honesty, right, like, I think there's some spaces that we have to carve a space out for ourselves to some extent. Have you ever gotten pushback on just who you are and what you represent and whether or not that people feel that that's valid? Or do you like people have never I mean, I'm just wondering, do you get pushback on it?
It'll always be from somebody that don't know me. Like they like, and it'll be very rare, right? It's super rare. Because usually people will check the temperature of the room and they're gonna be like, all right, well, I see this person, this elder, these people, they all rock with him, they all giving him a hug, and all right, so he must be rooted. And so when we vet people, this is something that you learn in doing community work of any kind. You have to vet people, check their references, find out their history, find out if they just came to your city, well, where did they come from and what was their reputation where they came from. So if
Mm,
you're doing, even if you're doing, I don't know, if you're working with communities dealing with HIV, right? And somebody come from Baltimore to be part of your community nonprofit, you can call the people that do HIV work in Baltimore to find out
right. You got
about this
references.
person. Yeah,
Right.
they either got a good reputation or a bad one. They shouldn't have none if they really did what they say they're doing. So then now
Mm,
you got to do it like a job. Now you got to give me your references, and your references, I hope they got some references. But that's how when people see me, they already know, like they like the people that's the doing so much of the community activities nowadays. I know their parents. I know their
mm.
parents. Their parents gave them my books when they was like in high school.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we carry a trail mix called Qua Mix. Young brother Kwaku, his daddy read my books. His daddy is amazed that now his son is putting his trail mix for sale up in our educational center, right?
That's a cool full
Um,
circle. That's really
yeah,
cool.
because you're supposed to, when if you're in your 40s, you're supposed to be working with people that's in their 30s and their 20s, and the 30-year-old supposed to be working
Absolutely.
with people in their 20s, and then the 20-year-old
Yeah.
will do a much better job of reaching the teens.
But that goes back to community and how we define community, right? Like, that has to be generational too. It has to be generational
Oh yeah,
connections
across
and,
space and time.
intergenerational and, right? Like, um, so what about for you internally? Have you ever felt an imposter syndrome? Have you ever felt like, do I really have all the knowledge to be speaking on this, or do I have the experience? Like, have you ever questioned yourself in this?
Yeah, sometimes I'll wonder whether um I'm doing it's one of those things where I wonder whether I'm doing as much as I can, because I have accolades and accomplishments and credentials that I acquired so that I wouldn't have as much pushback. Like, because I have a
Mm.
doctorate, you can't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about.
Mm,
Like, you got to know that I've went through a rigorous process to make sure that before I talk about it, I know what I'm talking about. And that I did so that I wouldn't have to keep on, like, if I write a history book, now I gotta like really go overboard to show you why I got the rights to write a history book. Like, nah, like I know how to do history. I know how to study. I know how to do a thematic analysis, et cetera, et cetera. Um, the same way I'm like, yo, I wonder if the work that I do is going to be well received when I take it to the people of Bengal, right?
mm, mhm,
Because um, I haven't seen the like the South Asian awakening that I've been hoping to see. Like, dark skin is getting more love now across Asia.
mm.
Um, South India got a film industry that is now dominating. Um, and did you watch Bahubali?
I did not. I know I was supposed to, that was my assignment.
That
I
was
did
your
not.
homework.
I'm
So
I'm I'm
Bahubali.
gonna watch it after this.
It's
Yes.
okay, it's okay. But that's an example of like dark-skinned South Asians taking on leading roles in Indian film, which is, as you
Mhm.
know, that's
But that's
different.
big. That's a
That's
huge
big.
pivot. That's
That's
a
big.
huge change.
Yeah, we really campaigning against like domestic abuse. Like, that's another thing. I'm glad to see that. We seeing um is still, they pitting religions against each other still, which is the
Mhm.
origin of how they was able to split up Bengal in the first place. So they keeping that going now. And
Yeah.
there have to be teachers, there have to be master teachers on that side that are able to somehow reconcile and bring those people together. And they may somehow come out of the world of hip hop, because they act this, like, Hanuman kind is uh
Mhm.
impressive, like, I come from an era where there wasn't artist that was able to do what he's been able to do in short time, right?
Right. Yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah, so it's progress. But then I think, like, the imposter syndrome for me is Like, am I doing enough? Because I feel like I'm never doing enough. I feel like I could be doing way more all the time.
Mm,
And
mm,
and so this space is it's a local space. It's not like a headquarters in Switzerland, you know? Um,
right.
and yet I look at it like, oh well, the world should come here. Everybody should be here. Everybody should learn like what they could learn here, um, including the people of other parts of the world, because that's part of the journey that the world watches Black America. Like that's not accidental. Like Black America is special.
Mm,
Like there's people that are disconnected throughout the world from Black America because they don't know that they have people here.
mm,
Like in places like New Orleans, LA, New York, um, Mississippi, Asians became part of the Black community, became part of the bloodlines.
mhm,
Right. Like there's the slave trade. They was capturing prisoners of war, and they were just capturing as many dark-skinned people as they could. They went to South Africa, East Africa, South Arabia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, the Philippines, into the Pacific Islands, and abducted all those people and made them all into Negroes. They relabeled all of them based on the color of their complexion in Spain as black, thus Negroes, and then dropped them off in places like Jamestown and decidedly didn't tell them where they was from, made sure they didn't have their culture, their language, their traditions, their history, their knowledge of themselves, their knowledge of their power, because a lot of them came from warrior communities and was really gifted, really prolific, and also sages like all across the people of Mali, the people of Senegal, those people, the people
mhm,
of that coast was very advanced. Like, yeah, it was a very intentional process of stripping the original people of the knowledge themselves and then doing an experiment here where they brought them all together and all these bloodlines became one people.
mm.
Yeah,
So this is part of the first book you wrote too? Is this
there's
that
been
piece of history that this is
that's in
okay,
When the World Was Book. Yeah, that's in When the World Was
in the
Black.
world.
Yeah, that's in that book. That's one of the last books that I wrote. Yeah, that's one of the last books that I wrote because that was when that was when Mecca Wise was battling cancer, and that's
Mm,
my better half. That was my earth, my wife, my best friend, my business partner. She helped put all these books out. She read them and reviewed them and made sure the customers got them and bookstores had them and kept my life organized. And to all the
mm,
brothers and men out there, um, a good woman to save your life. A good woman can
mhm.
will change your life. And yeah, keep that in mind because we don't give our women enough credit. So yeah, I'm thankful for my daughters, our daughters, because they've made sure that I turned out okay.
That's a beautiful thing. And this book, as well as all the other books, you can go and find on your website. So we are about to close out, but yeah. So I mean, if you can just tell us where do we find your information? What's next? What do we need to be checking out? All the links for the information for your website are below, but just where do people go to find you? And what's the next thing or the thing that you want them to know about?
Um, I think everyone should read How to Hustle and Win, which was the book that I began with and the book that started my journey in what we call non-formal education, which is education outside of the school system.
Mhm.
And I think that after they've read part one and part two, they should find some nieces and nephews and younger cousins or their own children and put that book in their hands and let that process begin for them and use our books to homeschool their youth. And then they should make a trip to Atlanta and they can go to a website um, called gotoatl.com. That's gotoatl.com. And this is where we are part of a network of businesses and community centers and schools and restaurants that are dedicated to providing the best to the people and Timbuktu is part of that. So all the Timbuktu events will be at that website.
Wonderful. Thank you. And so everybody heard all those links, all that information. It's all below as well. Make sure that you go and check out the books. You're passing it along to pass the knowledge along. Thank you so much, Supreme, for your time today, for sharing your story, for sharing all the knowledge and the tools. We really appreciate your time. And to everybody who is tuned in, please make sure you leave a comment of something that resonated with you. Share this with someone else. Like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you tune in every Sunday at 8 p.m. for more episodes of Pain to Power with guests that are sharing again their journey and the tools of how we heal in community and continue to understand ourselves. Thank you again, Supreme.
Peace. And to everyone, thank you as always for your continued patience, understanding, love, and support.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you to my producer, Jai Logic, the man behind the scene, as well as the iRant Network. And have an amazing evening, everyone.
Peace.
Peace.